One. Hello, everybody. It is Starrapter here, and welcome to the channel. This is Outer Rim Transmission Episode 9. Thanks, everybody, for putting up with a little technical difficulty in the beginning there. We're still kind of new to this whole thing of streaming, apparently, and we're trying out different ways of doing so. But with that being said, we are doing lots today as far as we have news to cover, which we didn't have last week, really. But it was okay, because last week was our first actual, revamped episode. But you might notice we're missing somebody this week. Ben is going to join us next week. He's out on Jedi business, although he did leave us a review for this episode of The Bad Batch. Episode 5 we'll talk about, of course, at the end of the episode. But I'm joined by my good buddy Milton. So how was your week, man?
My week was great, man. How was yours?
It was pretty good, pretty good. Us in the States here, we have a big holiday called Memorial Day weekend, which is kind of like the unofficial start of the summer over here. So unfortunately, I'm on the East Coast here, and we got a lot of rain coming our way. So it's not going to be the best, and it's usually hit or miss for the weather. But 4th of July is really what we can always count on as having nice weather around here.
No, you're absolutely right, man. Like I said, I'm an East Coast kid too, and like I said, I have plans to go to Gettysburg and spend some time with family and friends this weekend. So hopefully, everyone has a great weekend and a safe weekend.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So I thought it was very interesting. I had a thought this week. I don't know if I'm crazy about thinking about this. Pertaining to Star Wars, pertaining to, I guess, movies in general, from watching stuff at an early age and having those early memories of watching something and getting older and not having those things happen in the actual movie anymore. Like, apparently I built up this memory in my mind that when Jedi dueled, and this came specifically from Return of the Jedi. I don't know why that when lightsabers locked, according to my young brain at the time, I thought that the blades were getting smaller and smaller as you would lock in with another lightsaber. Right. Like the blade would get smaller and smaller, and then it's like that never actually happened in Return of the Jedi. So I thought that was very interesting. Have you ever had? It doesn't have to pertain to Star Wars, like a memory from a movie that you haven't watched in a very long time, and then watch it again, and you're like, right. Wait a minute, that actually never happened.
I think the trailers for the original trilogy, I wasn't around in 1977 or whatnot, but as they were releasing these special editions, the trailers seemed different than the movie. And then when you go back and watch it, yes, it's the same footage. It's just your mind plays tricks on you because they just cut it differently. And I didn't know that's how movies were made or trailers were made, through cuts of the film. I thought they just showed it to you. So when you go back and look at those special edition trailers, it's just cutting the film up and just advertising. Again, I didn't know that as a child. But like I said, your brain tricks you, but it's great. Again, the trailers, the movies are awesome. But yeah, man, that's probably the best way I can say my memories are when it comes to films and them being different from my perspective. This is not working.
Yeah, there was literally a lightsaber in Jedi power battles. This is why I'm remembering about what's going on with the game, is it pertains to way funky lightsabers work and how they actually have a power in the game. Do you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. We're going to cut that all out because apparently my mic was muted and I didn't realize it.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're off to a great start with all this. But I'll just say 3, 2, 1. I think I was talking about the power battles and how lightsabers react differently because you have, like, in this one game where there's like a 10-foot long lightsaber power up and
Right.
crazy stuff like that. So I'll just pick it up from there. And I'll just make a note of let's see, what time is this? At 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the video. Okay, I'll mark that down. Yeah, this is fun for live viewers. All right. What's going on, everybody? If you want to send some comments in, we'll try to get to them as we go along throughout the video, as always. So thanks for watching live. Yeah, so the more I thought about this memory that I had where the lightsabers kind of shrunk when they were in contact with another, it brought me memories to this old PlayStation game. And this PlayStation game is called Jedi Power Battles. And it was like a top-down adventure. Just you choose a character and you run through different levels, killing droids. And there is a power-up where you actually can get your lightsaber to go like 10 feet long. Like your lightsaber became like a huge staff. And you're just running around. It's like, at that time, there was like a Star Wars game put out like every month. You know, Lucasfilm was just churning out these games left and right. Some of them were great. Some of them were kind of okay. I would say this one was like more of the okay route. But I mean, the more I think about it, there's lots of other Star Wars kind of weird things that I remember that probably didn't come true that I can't recall right now. But just like sometimes we, I guess, kind of fantasize certain parts of the movies that somehow never happened, because maybe in my head I'm making like, I used to play with the toys and then I would come up with these different kind of plot lines for the toys, like people would fight and stuff like that. So yeah, that is my kind of rambling on for what I did or what I thought of with Star Wars this week.
It sounds like you were trying to retcon, Star Wars to make it fit for wherever you wanted. So, I mean, hell, at this point, what we're going to talk about later is what Disney was doing, and Star Wars was doing at this point when they took over. But yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, retconning for sure.
Yeah.
Not just that, there's another thing I do want to mention about the Bad Batch episode. So yeah, it's gonna be fun times, but we are gonna get into it as we always do every week here on Auto Room Transmission. We're gonna get right into the realm of the news. And I know, Milton, you've been really looking forward and chomping at the bit to this one. We got a big confirmation out from, the source was, I believe, Collider.com
Collider, yep.
did an interview with JJ Abrams, something about like a anniversary for Super 8. And he actually came out and admitted that basically it would have been nice to have a plan going in. Now, this guy, obviously, if the trilogy was set so that he was going to do all 3 films, of course there would have been a plan, but lots of crazy things happened that were out of everybody's control, which ended up making it the way it was, which a lot of people are not super satisfied with how that trilogy went. I'm basically so-so with it. Like, I could live with it. I could do without. At certain days, I'm feeling different things. But yeah, I think it's just crazy how JJ Abrams actually went through with saying this and confirming. I never thought he would ever say that, because I feel like that would be like admitting to kind of like defeat, like, okay, I'm just going to give in and just admit it. So, hey, I mean, that's good on him for saying it, but like, obviously he's not going to do anything with Star Wars ever again. So he's like, well, I don't really care what I have to say at this point, because it doesn't matter. I'm done with the franchise,
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'll say it this way. I'll say 2 things, right? One, I want to let everyone know that as much as I love Star Wars, and it does dominate a majority of my life in the sense of it's part of me, Star Wars isn't going to break my spirit, especially the sequel trilogy and how it was done. It's not going to break my spirit. So I want to make sure everyone understands that before we get into this further. And then 2, JJ Abrams probably thinking, look, I'm over at Warner Brothers right now. They're paid me all this money. I got that mega deal, so I can say whatever I want about Disney and Star Wars at this point. And I'm glad that he's come out and told the truth. So let's get into this. So when Chris presented this article to us about the news, the first thing I said was about time, because I've been saying this since day one. Ever since they made The Force Awakens, I was like, okay, where's the plan for this? Because they only focused on that first movie, but they never talked about we already have a foundation laid out. You know who did before he sold it? George Lucas did. He had the treatments, the mini story arcs. He at least gave you an idea of what he wanted to do with those 3 films. Yes, George has openly admitted that when he was making the original trilogy, he was making it up too. There's a famous back and forth between JJ and George Lucas talking about. I think when JJ was rebooting Mission Impossible or whatever, he even said to George, or George was like, "Hey, I was making it up too during Star Wars or whatever." Fine, so be it. But you're Disney. Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, JJ Abrams, this falls on your shoulders. And I'm glad this was finally said because I think clearly after what we got with the sequel trilogy, the fandom was actually saying, about time you come out and admit this. Admit your faults. It's okay. Because when you're so steadfast and you plant your feet in the sand and you don't want to move and budge, that's going to really upset more of the fandom. And that's where I was at. To me, it's like, okay, you guys are being stubborn. You don't care about the fandom. You just care about what you want to do. You care about making money. You don't care about actually giving the fans what we deserve and what we need. That may sound selfish, but it's true. We waited, what, 10, 12 years until the next Star Wars movie came out. At least take the time to plan it out. Why do you think
Mm.
Marvel's so great? They planned it out years in advance. But yeah, it's just I got more to say, but Chris, I'm gonna let you take the wheel on this one right now.
Yeah, so that's a really good point that you mentioned about George Lucas having the scripts. He had done apparently 7, 8, and 9, had it in hand. We learned a lot of details, right, about this metachlorian will level type of physiology molecule things that were going to be minuscule, but or what power the Jedi ultimately. And it was going to be this really crazy idea where Disney probably just looked at it and was like, this is too abstract. We're trying to bring Star Wars back. This might alienate more of the fans than we already have, you know?
I mean, you're absolutely right in the sense of that. Look, I think we all as fans can agree was the Guardian of the Wills or the Metachlorians idea he was throwing out, was that something realistic he was going to do? Personally, I say no. I think that was just an idea that George was just putting out there because George likes to take risks. George is different. He sees Star Wars a little bit differently. Fine, so be it. But I honestly think, and actually, no, we know this from the Force Awakens not novelization, but the art of the Force Awakens. He had ideas for the grandchildren. That was his focus. Were on the grandchildren of the Skywalkers and Solos. So we all know that George would have kept it family based. He would have kept the focus on the Skywalkers and Solos. He would have saw how the grandchildren took the lead and how the main three characters would have taken a step back and let it be about the new characters and a new generation. Because again, every trilogy of films is about the new generation or that particular generation. So to me, George had ideas that were creative, that were somewhat relevant, that we would have connected with. Now, clearly, he would have needed touch ups. That's why he brought in Michael Lawrence, Lawrence Kasdan, various other writers or ghost writers, whatnot. But yeah, George, I think, would have made something that would have been um, somewhat would have been accepted compared to, let's say, The Last Jedi or even The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. Yeah, we both know how those films went as far as people love it or hate it. Or it
Yeah,
seems like Rise of Skywalker just doesn't resonate with really that many people in general. The Last Jedi is the more polarizing, I feel like, of
right.
those two movies. But yeah, I mean, thinking about an alternate reality, right, where JJ Abrams just did all three movies himself. I mean, at least I think that would have been more cohesive than starting out not doing the middle one and then ending with the
Mhm.
trilogy there.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. That's what really bothers me about this whole situation is because JJ said he wasn't going to do episode 8 or 9. Like he made it very clear
Yeah.
after he did the Force Awakens, which we're like, okay, fine. Literally, I remember hearing we talked about this before, Chris. I remember hearing the news about JJ Abrams doing 7. I was like, oh, I like JJ Abrams' work. He's a good visual storyteller. Yeah, is his writing always the strongest? No, but he knows how to capture the spirit of any franchise. Again, he resurrected Mission Impossible. He resurrected Star Trek. He had the show Lost. I believe he did Super 8 before Star Wars, and
Mm-hmm.
then he did something like JJ knows how to make film and resurrect brands. So I was like, okay, that's a perfect choice, But then it's like you're telling me that Ryan Johnson and Colin Trevorrow could not get in the room with JJ and Kathleen and the various story team of Star Wars, and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing in the Force Awakens. We got the Last Jedi. We need to get here with the Last Jedi to then get here with the Rise of Skywalker." Or his title of that movie is going to be? Duel of the Fates.
Oh yeah,
Colin
yeah,
Trevorrow's. Yeah, like we need to get here and here. I've heard Kevin Feige. You're going to hear me say Kevin Feige a lot, probably.
yeah.
Kevin Feige has said, like, we got these movies here. We need our directors to get them here.
Ah.
Yes, we want them. We want them to bring their own creativity, their own flair to the story, but we have certain beats and certain things we need to get to because
Mm-hmm.
we are building a universe. Star Wars could have done the same thing, and it's like, why couldn't you do that? And like I said, I'm glad JJ Abrams have finally come out and said, yeah, pretty much we didn't have a plan. It was pretty much every director for themselves. Kathleen Kennedy pretty much gave free reign to whomever. It's like, come on. Like you don't allow the criminals to run the insane asylum. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, and that's probably a bad analogy or example, but if you know what I mean when I say that, it's the fact that there's a reason why you have these executives in charge of these producers. And I know people are going to say, well, Milton, you love the Snyder cut. You wanted Zack Snyder to do his own vision. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, you need those studio executives to say, hey, we need to make sure we do the right things in the sense of where our story is going to go. Because it's bigger than just the one story or the one
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. It's just you figure that's like an obvious thing to do, right? Get everybody in the same room, do all this. But
yeah.
and it's like the biggest movie studio in the world, right? Like they're run by Disney. Like they've done this a million times. Well, maybe not a million times because not every movie is a franchise, but
Right.
it could just be a little bit annoying because this is like concrete now. You know what I mean? Like this is immovable. Like you can't just retcon the heck out of these movies. You got to sort of live with what you have now, which a lot of people are just disappointed by, which is how do you spin back around from that now?
Right. I mean, I'm thinking, at this point, Chris, whatever they create from this point on that may tie into the sequel trilogy is going to have to clearly be better. It's going to have to flesh it out in the sense of like, just like for example, like how Clone Wars fleshed out episode 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I personally love the sequel or the prequels more now that the Clone Wars is in between those two movies, because I now understand Anakin's character more, Obi-Wan's motivation, the Jedi perspective.
Yeah.
People. I think if we didn't have the Clone Wars, I think the prequel trilogy would have still been sour to some people. But I think a lot of people now appreciate those sequels, or excuse me, prequels, because of the Clone Wars. We need something like that, I think, to at least show some appreciation towards the sequel trilogy down the road. I mean, honestly, my idea would be having a movie between 6 and 7 of Luke Skywalker's adventures. I mean, we're getting that right now with the Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
That's helping it. But we need something with one of our original characters or two. Maybe it's an animated series. I'll take it at this point. It's been great. Give us that of like 5 seasons of, the New Republic of Luke and all those guys creating the New Republic again. I think that would help people understand better. You know what? This is why the sequel trilogy had to go this route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, they also kind of put themselves in a corner with like the timeline, right? Like
Yeah.
Force Awakens instantly goes into Last Jedi. You really only have 1 year to play around with in between, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. So at least with Clone Wars, they had literally 3 years, which is a substantial amount of time for a war going on, as we've seen all the different storylines they could make, where it's like, okay, you only have a year realistically. So is there that much you could do? Could they eventually do some kind of tie-in material there, but would that sabotage the story? It's just hard to salvage this. I mean, I think they're trying to do it with certain comic books, as we've seen with Darth Vader issue number 12, when he goes to Exegol and he finds out that like Luke's hand, it looks like Luke's hand is there, and you see Snoke's and tanks, you see Star Destroyers that were already created. So like, okay, they're trying to backpedal, be like, hey, yeah, you know, it didn't seem likely that these guys could make this in 30 years because, well, the Imperials had already done it for them beforehand. So that's how that happened. So like they're filling in like little plot holes as they go along, but you know, only like 5% maybe of the people that watch the movie will ever understand or even know that it happened. So
Yeah, no, you make a great point. I was just about to say, people like okay, like Star Wars when they make the comics and those little things like that, they are marketing to the hardcore sweaties. I call it like you and I. We're
yeah.
hardcore sweaties who love this type of stuff. People who are listening to this podcast or watching it, they're hardcore fans, so they may get the comics. So be it. But my dad, who's 55 years old, is not going to read a comic book. Okay? My friend's father, who's almost 60, who likes Star Wars too, is not going to read a comic book. He's not going to play the video games. He's not going to watch the animated series. He's going to want to watch those 3 movies and say, okay, this is your platform. Tell me in 3 films what happened after Return of the Jedi. What happened to Luke, because we all want to know about Luke. What happened to Han and Leia and their children. And honestly, I felt that that wasn't satisfying to me personally. And this is where it goes back to what JJ said. We should have went in with a better plan to flesh out what went on with those 30 years. The first movie, we can understand there's been a lot of questions that need to be answered or haven't been answered. We get it. That's the setup. The Last Jedi gave us more questions and no answers at all, in my opinion. The Rise of Skywalker kind of had to rush those answers. You know, no one thought that Palpatine was going to come back. Nobody from the beginning of The Force Awakens thought Palpatine somehow is alive. Nobody. They had to put him in there because they killed off Snoke, and JJ probably was thinking, why would you do that? Snoke, we all thought Snoke was Plagueis. Everybody was thinking he was Plagueis. You know, or
even
like
in Duel the Fates, dude, Duel in the Fates, like there's a character that pretty much is Plagueis, isn't he?
Oh my goodness. Are you talking about that's not the spider character?
No, after that, like Kylo goes in that other script, he goes to this place and he doesn't say it's Plagueis, but it can be basically assumed it is.
Yeah, you know, and like it's even with like the continuity of like the movies and the novels, and I think you and Ben might have talked about this. I specifically remember in the novelization of The Force Awakens. Now remember, they said those books were canon. I remember in the book Snoke talks about him. He was around during the old Empire days, and he watched how Vader and Palpatine kind of like just how you say they were in their own hubris, and they didn't like really like prepare or pay attention to like the downfall of Vader and a whole bunch of crap. And it's like, wait a minute, why didn't we get more of that in the movie? Like, you know what I'm saying? But then they're saying, well, no, that the novelization's kind of like just a little run-on things. We can play around with it. It's like, no. Again, you don't have a plan of what is canon and what isn't. So don't tell me one's the other and one isn't. Like, that's why this article, but one, upsets me, but makes me very happy because I'm glad they're coming out and saying, hey, we really weren't ready for this. We really weren't prepared for Star Wars. And that's the biggest takeaway from this article, I feel like. Disney and Kathleen Kennedy maybe were in over their heads when it comes to how important Star Wars is and was, and how they really should have took this property seriously in the sense of, okay, we got to do this right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and people can say, well, The Force Awakens, Milton, they did it right. They brought in 2-point-something billion and blah 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 blah. Hell, great. I'm glad they made money, but looking back on it, 6 years ago, as to now, like, do you honestly think that you feel the same way you did then till now? No. I tell you that right now. No, you don't. So.
Yeah, I think what it is we see the potential, right? We see what they're doing with The Mandalorian, what they're doing with the last season of Clone Wars. There's such great storytelling out there that isn't on the big screen. So when we see that, we were kind of like, well, like, we got that maybe. So why isn't this up to par with that?
Yes, yes, yes. And again, I don't want to sound like that guy who's always gonna, who's gonna deride John Favreau and Dave Filoni, but I will. Those guys understand what Star Wars is and their legacy. And again, I am all about creating something new, refreshing the brand, expanding it. I think everyone's in agreement on that. But when you don't understand the property, you don't understand what responsibility that is to have something like this, and you decide to be that guy and be cute about it. I'm sorry, Ryan Johnson. I watched that documentary that they did on the making of The Last Jedi, and from my perspective, I feel like Ryan Johnson was like, well, the hell with what Star Wars really what it was. This is what I'm going to make it be. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? It's like, what are you doing? Clearly, Kathleen Kennedy and the Lucas team did not tell you what needs to be done in the sense of like, we need to get this movie here and these characters here so we can take Colin's vision and bring it here to conclude the trilogy and the saga.
And here's the interesting part too, because if you want to go down that rabbit hole now, is you have them basically allowing him to do what he wants, but then you have other creators that got fired. Like, Lucasfilm had a lot of turnover in these last couple of years. You have Chris Miller or Phil Lord Chris Miller, and you have Josh Trank of this bounty hunter movie. There's a lot of crap that has gone down over the years.
They lost 4, I guess, but 3 directors. 3. You're right. The Phil Lord, Chris Miller hookup, Trevorrow, and Trank. Now, Trank was because of some issues with Fantastic Four. That movie was trash. But, like, other than that, like, Josh Trank ain't a bad filmmaker either. Like, he just... Yeah. That movie was just garbage because of the whole studio stuff. We all know that story. But, like, right there, Chris, you make a great point. There was so much turmoil within Lucasfilm. Like, we're like, what is going on? Like, even with Solo, they bring in Ron Howard, and he tried to save that film the best he could. And I actually like Solo. Low key was really good, but people still had a sour taste in their mouth from The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah.
And it didn't help that it was coming out a month before Avengers Infinity War might have been.
Yeah, terrible timing.
Yeah, but like I said, man, it's just. Gosh, I'm hoping now with this article coming out that Disney and whomever over there at Lucasfilm is saying, hey, we're going to right the ship. We have been righting the ship by giving you Mandalorian, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Ahsoka's coming out, Rangers of the Republic. Is that what that one's called? Rangers of the Republic.
Well, here's the thing. There's a report on that where it's actually going to be postponed for a little bit. I don't know if you see anything about that.
No, I didn't see that.
They said they stopped current development on it. Now, I mean, if you look at the schedule of things, I think Ahsoka's being shot first before that anyway. So I wouldn't really see them developing that show anyway right now, because between, Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and Ahsoka, that's enough on somebody's plate right now. I can't see them like having 4 shows like simultaneously going on. That if they need to have, they don't need to have that many shows. They can hold one back.
Well, and we got Obi-Wan 2 coming out. I don't forget that one. So you make a great point. And I think with what they're making now with their content, I think they're saying, hey, we're righting this ship. We're giving the fans what they want. We're also going to sprinkle in some new stuff to expand the brand. I feel like now, and again, I don't want to be that Monday morning quarterback because I am no movie executive or no film studio executive. I'm no creator like that in that sense. So I'm having to have faith in these people, and I'm trying to give them a chance because I do like a lot of their work. I just wish Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger and I guess the new guy that's running the ship, that Chezek guy or
Chapek, yeah.
Chapek, yeah. I wish they'd come out all together and say, yeah, guys, we screwed up this one. We need a mulligan. And I guarantee you the fans will be like, yeah, there'll be some backlash, but they'll say, you know what, though? We appreciate you guys coming out and being real with us finally. Because I want to like everything that they do. I want to love everything Star Wars comes out with, seriously. But like I said, when you try to play the fans like that, we're not stupid.
No, no, no. And so that's one big story that came out this week that it's one of those things where it's like we have to wait a while for something like this to come out, right? Like the guy's already done the movies, he moved on. These movies have been out for a year and a half now, Rise of Skywalker. So it's like, okay, then we could start seeing the interesting things like this trickling in. And something that took even longer to trickle in through the news feeds is the fact that apparently Zack Snyder was attached to in talks to make a Star Wars film after the after Disney bought out Lucasfilm before even JJ Abrams was prompted to direct Force Awakens. They were in talk with Zack Snyder. He was going to create a movie in the Star Wars universe taking place after Return of the Jedi that may or may not have characters that we have known. He didn't really confirm that, but it sounded like it was going to be more of like a Seven Samurai Star Wars movie. And well, first off, do you know anything about Seven Samurai?
I've seen like the old like clips on like YouTube and stuff. Like that's the Kurosawa films. And I think if you look at some of those Marconi, Clint Eastwood westerns, Seven Samurai and Kurosawa, like that's influence from those old movies. So I've seen how like the westerns and the Kurosawas has influenced Star Wars. With like the different orders, the spiritual stuff, the bounty hunter type thing, the loner. So yeah, I'm familiar with like the themes of like those films.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Because is that where they get the idea of like the farmers rising up against their oppressors and like learning how to fight?
Yeah, so like it's kind of like if you've seen like kind of like the Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, like
Okay.
that has some of those elements in it too. Like you
Ah.
have like foreigners coming in or like someone coming in, adapting to their culture, become learning, breaking away from the system in the sense of like they're learning more about themselves, their inner selves, finding peace, but also like being a rebel in the sense of like protecting what's yours and you thinking about others instead of just yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's where we got with the thing about the Jedi. You don't focus on yourself. You're about others, and that type of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. So putting that in perspective, then imagine Zack Snyder playing around with the Star Wars mythos and the characters and the locations. I mean, you already said right now earlier that you're a big fan of the Justice League Snyder cut. So and this is coming hot off the heels of Army of the Dead, which I really actually enjoyed. That was on Netflix. It's like going to be the number one streaming movie ever on Netflix at this rate. So that's very, very
Yeah.
popular. It's doing well for the service. So Zack Snyder, I mean, he's got that specific look to his content. Like you watch it for 5 seconds and you're like, okay, it's got the slow mo, it's got those wonderful musical montages and just the over the top action and the explosions and everything else. How do you think that would translate? Do you think that would translate well to Star Wars?
Um. I mean, at this point, I would say yes. And like I said, there's also a way I can say no because it's a possibility that it just wouldn't work for it. Let's be honest here. But after seeing Zack Snyder's work for years, whether it's 300, Army of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder Justice League, the DCU in general, um, he could have adapted it. And I think Zack Snyder's smart enough to actually sit down with the Lucas team and Disney and say, hey, this is where I want to take this. What do you guys want as well? Let's try to work together because Zach's very collaborative. I mean, I hope people understand that. I know the Zack Snyder Justice League was his own thing and a big push, but Zach isn't one of those stubborn filmmakers who says I don't care about what the studio thinks. Like I'm going to work with them. That's how I'm able to create and make these films. So I think it could have worked. It'd have been very different in the sense, but like I said, I trust that Zack Snyder would made something that's entertaining, that's challenging. I think he would have made something that was very real for the fans and for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like Zack Snyder does not phone it in when he creates any project.
No.
Every film he's made has been with like he's had an emotional attachment to, and he you hear how he talks. He says, "Hey, I've gotten this idea from here, or I was inspired to do it like this way, and I love bringing like these type of writers in and characters, and he's very much connected to his project. So I feel like he would have been a great fit for Star Wars and he really cared. Now would have worked? I don't know. But like I said, I'm glad that this came out because I would love to see some type of Zack Snyder Star Wars project.
Yeah, I think he would have the spectacle down, and there's been a lot of. I mean, the Star Wars has like a certain theme. The filmmakers, they create the series. They have a very specific like kind of way of going about making the film, so they all kind of like visually kind of connect, right? Like you watch Solo, you watch Rogue One, they got that connection to Star Wars. Like you just know it's Star Wars. Now with Zack Snyder, I feel like he would definitely change the status quo just a little bit. Like you could see his movie for like 5 seconds and be like, oh, this feels way different for Star Wars, more than any other like director so far that's done any of the movies. Like whether or not Lucasfilm would make him go along with that, and maybe that's why they separated both ways, because his ideas are a little bit over the top sometimes. But just seeing how he uses a lot of gore, it would probably be a lot of a rated R. It could have been like a rated R Star Wars movie, which is
Right.
never gonna work. I don't think that would ever happen at this rate. I mean, the closest we're getting to that is some of the stuff in Mandalorian, which could be a little bit on the edge there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I think, and you're right. I think that's where it probably wouldn't have worked. And again, I mean, trust me, I would have watched it. I probably would have loved every second of it, just to be honest with you. But at the same time, we know Star Wars isn't that type of genre, and this is where if I knew Zach personally and he said, hey, Milton, this is my idea for my film or my show or my series, I want to take it here. I would say, okay, Zach, I see where you're coming from, but let's not forget certain things about Star Wars need to be involved in this film. You can't be gouging people's eyeballs out with, the Razor Crest and, gouging people out with lightsabers and all type of stuff. Like, you got to keep it to where, remember, this is not only for adults, it's for children as well, And like I said, I feel like Zach would have, if he really wanted to do it, he would have made it work for the project. So yeah, like I said, and again, I'm hoping he does want to do it in the future because it'd be nice to see something different, but also feels like Star Wars.
Yeah, because watching Army of the Dead, I could see that very much translating the same sort of thing into a Star Wars project, the way he was explaining it. Like, Army of the Dead, they have a bunch of just random characters that each have like their own special abilities. Like, hey, you have like the guy that cracks the safe, or you have the guy that's really good with a melee weapon, or you have the leader, you have the person that has the information about all the layout of the place. Like, I could see that kind of like with Solo or something. Like, everybody has their own job. With Rogue One, same kind of deal there. So I could see there being like a droid in a group, or some kind of bounty hunter in a group, maybe some kind of ex-rebel soldier, all this stuff being combined where these people have to work together, almost like a Suicide Squad version of Star Wars. I could see that happening. And I like the fact that this wasn't going to be like an episode 7. This is going to be like the first standalone Star Wars film since the Disney purchase. This was going to be something that would kind of tide the weight for a new trilogy, most likely, but kind of set the standard for what Disney would do with, holding on to the franchise. This could have been a huge hit because it's like, there's not a lot of, I mean, we're talking about having a certain amount of tone and stuff with the films, but if you're not connected to that saga, right, you don't feel as much pressure to really live up to like George Lucas's saga, because, you're just doing your little one-off adventure over here, especially if it doesn't have any of the characters like Luke or Han or Leia showing up. Then you could just pretty much go wild with it and not have to worry as much.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's two ideas that would have been perfect for Zack Snyder. One, something with the Old Republic, but like with the underworld type, because that I feel like that would be where he would thrive better. He might be able to get away with a little more grittiness. So like, think about that 1313 game that came out, or that was going to come out. If you adapted that into some type of series or film or whatever, and that takes place 2,000 years before the original trilogy or whatever, or the prequels. So that'd have been cool to see something like that. Or I was thinking, if you want to keep it present or within the timeline, tell a story of the Knights of the Ren. Like I've read the comics about when Kylo joins them. That's a very violent, comic.
Oh, yeah.
Series. So if you want to adapt the Knights of Ren, that's what, like 6 episodes or six series or issues or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That'd have been cool to see that story, because you get to see the growth of Kylo Ren as the Jedi student or apprentice being then molded by Snoke, and him, killing the leader of the Knights of the Ren to then take over. Like I'd have been cool to see if Zack Snyder take that, and you know how he does well at adapting comic books to film. I mean, look at Watchmen.
Oh yeah,
Watchmen's a
so
cult
good.
classic. A lot
So
of people
good.
love Watchmen, and so he could have taken the pages off that comic book and put them into the film in his own style. Then I'd been like, okay, like that'd have been pretty cool.
I'm still waiting for them to start adapting some of the novels, some of the comics, even if it's just animated. I feel like that would be huge for traffic to now Disney Plus, right? That would be just
Yep.
a no-brainer. Like you see how DC is putting out all these awesome animated movies that just come out of the woodwork out of nowhere. It's like, oh, here's another one for you guys, and it does so well. Like every one of those gets like rated so high, pretty much.
Oh gosh, that's such a good point. I didn't even think about that, because aren't they having the long Halloweens coming out? Is
Yeah.
that the most recent one?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a
and
really
we
good
we
book
know
too.
that's going to be fire, because I love the Hush one. The Hush movie was good, but they do a really good job at bringing those books to animation. And like even the Suicide Squad ones, they were hyper violent, but really good. Like I was like, I can't ever
Oh.
get enough of those animated films by DC. So I wish Disney, and this is where I would tell Disney, it's okay to have a separate entity that's a little more for adults. If you want to take the comics and say, hey, we want to give you, our adult fans, something more realistic, in a sense of more like, graphic novel feel. Here, we'll give you like the gritty stories of Kylo Ren or of Anakin and
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan in the desert or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. And you mentioned this before, right? That crazy quote of Kathleen Kennedy saying, "Oh, we don't have as much to pull from from the content as we would
Son,
like." It's like we got just 6 years worth alone of just the canon stuff, which or 7 years, which is plenty of stuff right there.
plenty. And listen, even with your channel, Chris, you reviewed in the last 6 years at least 200 comics, at least, you would think.
Oh yeah, probably something like that.
So don't tell me, Kathleen, again, don't tell me you don't have it, because Chris reviews them on his channel every week. So like it's there. I was just at a comic book. This is my thing for Star Wars. I'm sure we'll get to this later. I'll
Oh,
jump to it early. So my thing for Star Wars this week was I went to a comic book shop here in my town where I live,
oh,
and I asked the guy. I was like, hey, I was looking for some Green Arrow comics, and I was like, hey, by the way, do you have like the Vader Down series or like some of the Vader comics, in general? He's like, man, every time we get them, they sell fast.
yeah.
And he's like, I don't know if I have anything. And he was looking through his stuff. He's like, yeah, we're kind of out. But they
Oh
had
my
like
gosh.
toys and stuff. They had the Power of the Force toys in the back corner, and they had a big X-wing or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, the comics are still relevant. People still read them. People want to know those stories. So Kathleen, don't tell me you don't got it, because clearly a guy in this town tells me they get sold all the time. So
Mm,
just saying.
mm. That is true. So yeah, Zack Snyder, and we had so many reports throughout the years of these high A-list actors, these very, very well-known actors, prestigious actors, getting like maybe looked at by Lucasfilm, but like a lot of it doesn't fall through. I wouldn't be surprised if like you know Quentin Tarantino or somebody got approached for a Star Wars movie. I know he got
Right.
approached for Star Trek, but you got a lot of these big name people because everybody gets influenced by Star Wars by some degree, whether it be big or small. So a lot of people are trying to get in there to kind of pay the respects in a way to be like, hey, they helped me out and I'm going to give back to the fandom, that sort of thing. People just love the franchise. So I'm sure over the years we'll get more and more of these, oh, I wish that would have happened kind of thing. And I would have liked to have been like a fly on the wall in that meeting, be like,
Right.
why did they part ways? Because from the outlook of things, I think it could have been pretty successful for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think no one's bigger than Star Wars. I don't care if you have 5 Oscars or Emmys or whatnot. Like Star Wars isn't some silly project. I mean, to most fans, Star Wars and most people, Star Wars is life changing. Whether it's for your career, your personal life, your mental health, whatever, man. Like it affects you in a way that's very positive. I mean, even like I think about whenever I don't know if you read the story of like whenever Al Pacino watched Guardians of the Galaxy with his like grandchildren or
No.
something, and like he was in the theater and like he said, he's like, man, like that really just that surprised me how they made this film, and I loved
Oh,
it. I loved every minute of it or whatever. And like someone like Al Pacino who saw a comic
really?
book movie like that, like was into it, you know. And it's like any big time actor or director when they see Star Wars, like they were children before. I guarantee you, they were all like, "Oh my god!" Like when I was 10, I loved this film. Even as a 20-some-year-old or 30-year-old, like I still love the Star Wars films or whatever. Like it impacts you. So like I think any big time director or actor was they were presented with the opportunity to be in Star Wars, I think they would jump at the bit. Now I'm sure you got those snobbish thespian type directors or actors who are like, oh no, I'm going to make cinema, or like your boy Martin Scorsese, get out of here with that. It is like, come on, dude, like it's Star Wars, man. Like you can, it's a great property.
Or you can play ball, right? You can play ball with Star Wars because I'm forgetting his name right now. But the guy that came in to fix Rogue One, do you know what his name is?
Oh, Tony Gilroy.
That's the guy. Thank you, thank you. So Tony Gilroy is infamous in the fandom of Star Wars for like not actually caring about Star Wars, but
Yep,
like it's nice to have people like that because guess what? Rogue One ended up being my favorite of the whole franchise so far. So it's like
yep,
sometimes it actually helps to have somebody that's not caring about the franchise because they could actually give like a fresh, new, unique take on the galaxy that, as we've seen, works, right? That could work like adding something fresh that somebody didn't see because they were too in it to really see it from the outside. So go ahead, like try to get these people in there. It's nice to see like the super fans because you always see those articles of like the creators like, oh, my first memory of Star Wars was this. This is my favorite thing. I just want to see more like Tony Gilroy's. I think having more of them in there, it's fine to have somebody that's not like head over heels of Star Wars working on it. Doesn't mean that they're
right.
not going to do well because that obviously Rogue One was freaking amazing. So
Yeah, I mean, like, and they're professionals. You know, like you're a professional. So if I'm giving you a job to come like create a Star Wars film and you can give some creative input and make the story stronger, like that's what he did. I remember I actually watched that interview that he talked about it. He's like, I came in, they were seeing what was going on, and they couldn't really get the story right, and I came in and saw it from a different perspective and said, hey, all these characters got to die pretty much, and he was able to like to fix that ending or whatever it is, and it's like, yeah, like he just said, hey, from a storytelling point, if you're trying to get here, this is what needs to happen to ensure that these characters' sacrifices are meant something, and that you can still protect the legacy of the original trilogy, pretty much.
yeah,
So, like, and that's again, he's an outsider. And he said, okay, let me take a viewpoint from a storyteller's perspective and where we want to get this arc to fit. So I think that's great. You make an excellent point about bringing in people who may not be quote unquote sweaties or Star Wars fans. That's totally fine. You know, if we got a Quentin Tarantino or let's say another director who's pretty like a oh my god, he made like David Fincher.
oh
You know
yeah,
that's that type of director. Like I'd be like, okay, let's get it. You know, David Fincher's a hell of a creator and a filmmaker. I'd be interested to see how he would take Star Wars into the direction. You know, again, I need people to understand this. We're fine with them making risk and taking risk, but just don't be a jerk about it. Like that's our biggest thing. You know what I'm saying? Like at least like stay true to what Star Wars is. Ryan Johnson.
hey we got a visitor coming in from a holocron call, a holocall. Real Ben Maynard. Hey, does that sound familiar to you? I think I heard his name once or twice. Just
Okay.
doing a quick flyby in my Jedi Starfighter. We need a Spielberg Star Wars. He's the best director ever. I'll be back next week, fellas. Yeah, so, I mean, he actually directed part of Revenge of the Sith, didn't he? I think he
Yes,
directed one of the
he
sequences.
ghost directed. He ghost directed the scene with Obi-Wan on that creature chasing
Yeah.
Grievous. No, Ben makes a great point. I mean, a Spielberg be nice, and like I said, he's friends with George. He worked with Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy before. But again, Spielberg doesn't come off as like the biggest Star Wars fan, and that's okay, because I love E.T., Indiana
Mm-hmm.
Jones, Saving Private Ryan,
Jaws.
whatever
Park.
Jurassic Park, Minority Report, World of the what's it called? That alien movie he made with Tom Cruise.
War of the Worlds.
Yes, like he knows how to like make different type of genre of films.
Yeah.
So like again, Spielberg will be a perfect choice because Spielberg will be objective and say, okay, let's get this story told where we need to get it. Let's map this out, and let's get to where we can connect with the fans and make them feel like they're part of that story.
Yeah, and I think it would be good for him to do a standalone movie, not have him in charge of a trilogy, because if you look at his like filmography, I mean, besides Indiana Jones, all his films are basically standalone films, and I think that's what really helps his image a lot and his storytelling is like he knows how to start and finish a movie in like 2.5 hours done, and makes it just like an unforgettable movie that people watch over and over and over again. So just implanting him in some era of the Star Wars universe, all new characters, maybe like a couple familiar locations, lightsabers, blasters. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Just blasters and lightsabers. You're in Star Wars. Get a couple spaceships. Boom. Just do a story there.
No, you're right. You make a good point. Like, I'm trying to think, has he done a sequel to any of his films except for Indiana Jones? And you notice that was the Lucasfilm project. So I'm pretty sure he hasn't done a sequel for any other project for his work that I can think of. So anyone who's listening or watching, please correct me or find that answer for me. You know what a story I think he'd be perfect for a standalone storyline for him. Maybe someone can then create the sequels for it. If we could somehow get like the Star Killer, like make that canon, like the Force Unleashed, dude. If he turned that game into a movie, oh my god, yo, that'd be fire.
I mean, he's already kind of turned a video game into a movie kind of thing with Ready Player One. That's like pretty much a
I even
video.
think about that, and that movie's tight. I like that movie. So, like,
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. So, and I bought that on Blu-ray. That's how much I liked it.
Whoa.
Like, yeah. So, like, that's a good example because he took a lot of those properties, that were teased in it, and it was something that was original too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like, okay, you don't know what else I'm thinking of? Who's the director that created Tron Legacy?
That I've no clue. I've never watched any Tron movie.
But like Tron Legacy, low key, I like that film, even though it didn't make tons of money. It wasn't a bad film. Something like that with Star Wars would be kind of different, like in a sense of like you're in a different part of Star Wars that's kind of exotic. So I'm just trying to. Again, it can be done.
It certainly can be done, and it's just fun to think about all the possibilities for future filmmakers in Star Wars. So, scrolling over to our next topic in the news, we're going to go over to the publishing side of things. So, we had another episode of the High Republic show, which comes out bi-monthly, and it just kind of recaps what's been going on in the High Republic era, which has really been on fire. Started out in January with Light of the Jedi, couple books, lots of comics in the between, and we're getting ready for wave 2 of phase 1. It's basically like Marvel. They've already set out. Talk about something that has a plan. The High Republic has a very large plan. They've had groups of story meetings for weeks on end, having all the creators in one room talking, hashing it out, plot lines, characters, and well, we got a really cool announcement for a new comic miniseries. It's going to be like a mystery noir kind of thing, and that's awesome because Star Wars deserves to go in different genres. As we've seen in the Clone Wars, there was actually like a noir type of detective episode with this little detective guy, I forget his name, and it's on Coruscant. So anyway, this High Republic mystery comic, it's going to involve 2 new characters, one Jedi, one kind of like a private eye, and they're going to be going around after the events of what happens on Valo. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but that's like the next big flashpoint in the High Republic. It's going to be started in the Rising Storm, which comes out in June. So yeah, a lot going on with the High Republic. We have the release of these new books coming out regularly. Lots going on. At the moment, I am reading one of the books that's not coming out till next month, and that's The Rising Storm. And what I can say is, so far, I have not finished the book. I'm almost like 2/3 done the book, and it's fantastic. It carries along what the Light of the Jedi did. And the cool thing about the High Republic is, even though they have all these comics, they have all these other books, from young adult books to middle grade novels, you don't have to feel like you read everything to get it all. You can just, read each big novel. So far, there's Light of the Jedi by Trollsoul, and the next big Del Rey novel will be this one I'm reading, The Rising Storm. So you can jump in at any point, and they do a good job of expanding the galaxy. And you have the Nile Thread, who are like these ravaging guys from like a Mad Max movie in space. They have like this Viking cool armor, and they wear these gas masks, and they are absolutely crazy because they like throw this like war cloud, which is like this gas, which is why they use the gas mask, and they just like subjugate all the people and just go on killing streaks because they like hype themselves up on these like space spice and drugs and crap. And it's wow. Absolutely violent. And I know they're trying to flesh out these stories in the books and the comics, and I was a staunch believer of, this should just be comics, this should just be books, it's good to have a little niche. But now, the more I'm getting into this stuff, I'm like, I really need to start seeing this on the screen, because I can seriously see people really get a kick out of this, whether it's animated form or we are getting that Acolyte series from the person that did the Russian Doll series. And I never remember her name, the creator of that. I've really beaten myself up in the head not figuring that out. But yeah, the High Republic is definitely flourishing right now. And it's really cool to see Lucasfilm doubling down. So we're going to have like 4 comics for this High Republic series alone in the fall. And again, Trail of Shadows will be this miniseries, and it will kind of take place either concurrently or right after the events of the Rising Storm book, which is coming out in the June. So like pretty much from this month forward, we're getting some piece of High Republic content in book form or comic form. So it's a cool way to branch us over to whenever the next movie or whenever the next series is, because there's always something to pick up and read. And now it's great going to the comic shop every Wednesday, picking up something from, one of the Star Wars comics and hold me over till next week, or until Friday, I should say, because that's when we also get Star Wars content with our Star Wars show of the week. But yeah, High Republic, great stuff. Definitely check it out. And hopefully by sometime next week, I can have a spoiler-free review for The Rising Storm up for you guys to check out. So jumping out of the news and just kind of going into the title of this episode, War of the Bounty Hunters. So War of the Bounty Hunters is this epic crossover with the comics, all from Marvel, just from the Marvel comics. But we have really like 4 series that are coming together in that gap between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And for the month of May, we had what are called the prelude issues, which are like the setup issues for the big event, which begins next week, the first week of June, with War of the Bounty Hunters issue number 1. So for the month of May, we had these 5 setup comics. We had War of the Bounty Hunters Prelude Alpha, which was like a Boba Fett story, which really set the standard for what's happening. So we have Boba Fett, he's in Slave 1, and next thing you know, Han Solo in Carbonite, he's starting to melt out, right? He's actually starting to melt because freaking Boba Fett is taking his time delivering. Boba Fett actually does an entire other mission, like thinking, oh, I can get him to Jabba eventually. I have this debt I have to settle with this guy that's been bugging me. I'm going to take him out first and then worry about this later. So anyway, Boba Fett has to go and he has to deliver this, Han there, but he's melting. So he has to go see the doctor to help fix this at this place on Nar Shaddaa. And of course, Boba Fett doesn't have money for some reason. And the only way this doctor is going to fix Han Solo and Carbonite is if he kills this person that has wronged him in the past, this doctor. And this person just happens to be like a champion of like the fighting arena. So we have Boba Fett that enters himself incognito as Jango Fett and paints his armor black so nobody knows it's him. So this is a really cool evocative image of Boba Fett in black armor. And he basically calls himself Django and has flashbacks to him picking up his father's helmet in the Geonosian arena as he enters this arena on Nar Shaddaa. So it's really cool because he's fighting off all these people. He's using like a melee weapon. He's using every weapon in the book, little dual blasters like his father, carbines like he has. He defeats the end boss, if you want to call it. It comes back to the Doctor. The Doctor's dead, and Han Solo and Carbonite is gone. And that's what really sets up this entire thing. Is like, oh crap, Boba Fett has lost Han Solo. And before the fact, Bib Fortuna had contacted Boba Fett saying, where the hell's Han Solo? So basically, Jabba got fed up for Boba Fett taking so long and put a hit out on Boba Fett. So now there's actually a bounty on Boba Fett as well. So he's got to get this Carbonite back. And he's got a death mark on him. So that is really the setup. And besides that fact, we have our 4 other ongoing Star Wars comics, which we are having Star Wars, Darth Vader, like you talked about earlier. We have Dr. Aphra, and we have the Bounty Hunters comic. So in the Star Wars comic, obviously the motivation for the rebels to get Han back is Han is their friend. Luke wants him back. Leia's in love with Han. That's what their motivation is, to get Han back. So all these prelude issues really give us what the motivations are for these characters and why they want Han Solo back, because Han Solo is the MacGuffin in the War of the Bounty Hunters storyline. Everybody's got their own reason to get him, which is pretty cool. The Bounty Hunters comic, which some of you might not be super aware of, really the main character in the Bounty Hunters comic is an old Legends character that got made canon. His name's Byler Valence, and he is basically a cyborg. He actually knew Han Solo back on his days on Kurita in the Flight Academy, and Han Solo basically saved his life. And now that he knows Han Solo is in Carbonite, is in danger, he's like, he feels sympathy, even though he's this bounty hunter, this really tough guy. He's got a heart, even though he's mechanical. He's got a heart in him, and now he wants to pay the favor back for Han Solo for saving his life. Like, okay, I need to go after Han because I feel the need is right for that. So he's going there, but 4LOM is involved. Zuckuss is involved. He's got Dengar at gunpoint to bring him to Boba Fett because he knows that's where he has him. Also, in the Dr. Aphra series, that one is a little bit more nebulous. That one doesn't have a clear path to Han Solo yet, but other than that, she is trying to get this invitation to this special event, which I'm sure will tie into Han Solo. That's the weakest prelude for me, is that Dr. Aphra, I think it's issue number 10, which doesn't really lead so well as a clear indicator into what she's actually doing in this miniseries yet. And finally, we have Darth Vader. And the Darth Vader comics are just so good, as you said. Like, the Darth Vader comics, they do something like so good every time, no matter what the writer is, whether it's Kieran Gillen, whether it's Charles Soule, whether it's this run with Greg Pak. These guys are always just peeling back the layers at a character, which at first glance, you don't feel like has much going on with him. I mean, he's not much of a talker, but he's got such a presence, right? So you have Darth Vader in the War of the Bounty Hunters. He has come to the grips that Luke Skywalker can't be turned. He has come to the grips that in order to bring him, he's got to kill him. He tried, at Empire, on Cloud City, he tried bringing him into Alliance, and he just flat out denied him. And Vader's been thinking about this throughout this whole arc, of the comics. I think it's on issue number 12. He's been having these images, these visions in his mind, constantly going back to Bespin, thinking about his son Luke, and he has come to the grips that Luke just needs to be dealt with. He's done trying to help him. He needs to kill him. So he's going to track down, Han Solo and Carbonite to use that as bait to draw Luke in, because, Luke's weakness is his friend. So Luke is going to come to his friend. So if he holds on to Carbonite, he can lure Luke into him and deal with him. So that is what's happening there. So all these comic stories are coming together in this epic crossover that's going to go up until October. So one issue per month, 5-issue miniseries. But all these other series that are ongoing, like the ongoing Star Wars, Darth Vader, Bounty Hunter, Dr. Aphra, they're also going to, I guess, tie in constantly. So when you look at it, it's a pretty big endeavor, because there's like 34 issues, I counted, that are going to count into this crossover. And I'm sure people are like,
crazy.
Yeah, people are like, what the hell? Like, they're going to come out with probably, your omnibus editions where they have all the issues in one nice collected edition for a nice cost. But, usually these things are, if you buy them in trade paperbacks or if you buy them as an omnibus, you'll save a lot more money rather than just buying single issues like I do. But yeah, so I'm super excited because this has never been done to this degree in Star Wars comics, and the fact that we're fleshing out this era that I love, which is set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, we both love Shadows of the Empire, and without even having said it, they are basically confirming kind of in a way that this is like the canon version of Shadows of the Empire. They already mentioned that Black Sun is going to get involved, and you don't talk about Black Sun without talking about Prince Zizor, all right?
Yep.
If Prince Zizor does not show in to some capacity, this thing's going to be a flop. I mean,
you're absolutely right. And look, everything, I haven't read the comics like that like you have, so all hearing that is kind of like a great like history lesson of what's going on. So I appreciate that. Here's my question. I guess I'm gonna interview you right now, Chris, on this. If you had to recommend a comic book series or some issues to some random Randy who wants to start listening or watching and reading the comics, where would you have that person start? Over all the 6 years they've had this new canon, where would you have a fan start?
I would actually probably say, well, it depends. If they want to start somewhere new, I'd say start with the High Republic. Everybody's on the same playing field. Nobody knows anything about these characters other than me. Other than the people, right? Everybody's on the same playing field. It's only been out for a couple months. I would recommend them there. If they want to go for known characters, like I said, you can't go with Darth Vader. You can't go wrong with Darth Vader because everybody loves Darth Vader. Now, which arc do you want to start with? I would actually say people to start with, I forget the subtitle of it, but it's the one written by Charles Soule that has like the red cover. Apparently it's like...
Is that the Vader down one or no?
No, that is the one that takes place immediately after Revenge of the Sith, like when Vader's learning how to
That's
move in
right.
his armor.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. Okay, no, because I think because I know some friends that aren't like huge comic book readers, but they're like, because they know that I see this stuff around and I do glance at it, so they'll say like, does this tie into the movies, that type of stuff. So
yeah,
if you had to recommend one particular comic book series that ties in well into the films, what would you choose?
Ties in well with the films. Because here's the thing, they do have adaptations for the different ones. But the strange thing is they actually never came out with the adaptation of Rise of Skywalker. So that was interesting. Tying in with the movies, I mean, straight up Star Wars flagship series. I mean, you can't go wrong with a 2015 Star Wars #1 and work your way up from there, because that picks up with all the characters that everybody knows and loves, right? You can't go wrong with that. You said the other one, Rise of Kylo Ren. Fantastic story that really, again, peels back the layers on characters like we've never seen before. I think that one probably does the most there. Another really good one that I think is very underrated is the Obi-Wan and Anakin series that Charles Soule wrote.
I was just thinking that one. Would that be another perfect one?
Yeah.
For the fans. Okay.
Yeah, because what that does is it takes us into an era of Star Wars that like we never really see, actually. It's like that era, that 10 years or so between not A New Hope, Phantom Menace as well as Attack of the Clones. And at one point, this is a pivotal moment in Anakin's life. Like, Anakin legit wants to leave the Jedi Order. He actually like gave his lightsaber to Obi-Wan and it just says, I'm done with this. I'm going my own way. And they are basically on their own last adventure together. And that's what will decide if Anakin's actually going to leave or not. So it's this really great adventure that shows Anakin early on in his career as a Jedi. Like, it's like he's probably like 12 or 13. So he's only been in the Order for a couple of years. But it shows you like some Palpatine moments and great moments, just flashbacks and stuff like that. And just interactions between Obi-Wan and Anakin are just so fascinating because it's just... Even though we got a whole series like of Clone Wars and all, I still can't get enough of like their brotherhood and how they interact with one another, you know?
Yeah, that seems very, because I remember seeing like that comic around. Do they actually say, and again, this is me interviewing you right now, do they actually say in that particular comic book series, Anakin Obi-Wan, what Anakin was going to do if he happened to leave the Jedi Order.
I don't believe they actually said that. But then
That'd be
again, it's
kind of
been a
interesting
long
to see what
time.
his life would be like. Would he go live with Palpatine? Would he go work for him? Like, he's only 13 or 12 years old at that point, so like, didn't really have anybody.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah,
So
that is true. But like the miniseries in general, you usually can't go wrong. Another one, a good one that focuses on a villain is the Darth Maul comic miniseries.
yeah,
It's just that perfect kind of comic book, what you would expect of a Star Wars comic book. It's like you put a ragtag group of bounty hunters together, including Cad Bane, that are pre-Phantom Menace. They are going to satisfy Maul's rage for the Jedi. And Maul has all this aggression, and Palpatine's like, I need you to focus. So I need you to go on this mission and kind of focus your energy on something. So Maul takes it into his own hands, and he's like, okay, I guess that means I can go out and hunt a Jedi. So he goes and he hunts this Twi'lek Jedi, and he has to put together this crew to track her down. So it's got all these different kind of bounty hunters in his group, and it just shows like the early days of like him like working with the underworld and how that will function later on in his life, 10 years or so down the road with Crimson Dawn and all that stuff. But it's just got great artwork. The coloring and everything in that is just so striking. It's a really fantastic read too.
that's pretty cool, man. I appreciate that. It's awesome.
Yeah. So definitely for more on comics, you guys are already in the right place. Here on the YouTube channel, I'm talking, as Milton said, about the comics every single week, and I've been putting out special War of the Bounty Hunter videos, so you guys can follow along if you haven't been keeping up. I have like a week by week breakdown of what happens and all that. So I think we're up to week 4. I'm really excited about War of the Bounty Hunters coming out this week. We also, I have to mention this because I almost forgot to mention this. There is already a canonized version of a Legends character that happened in the end of Dr. Aphra, and that is Dirge from the good old Clone Wars micro series. He's actually canon.
That's crazy.
They actually show a picture of him hunting down Dr. Aphra as she's going towards wherever this invitation's leading her. So that is something I want to see, because I know from the Dark Horse comics, I've seen panels and stuff of like, this guy is just absolutely violent and homicidal, crazy maniac. So I want to see if they can like maintain that level of violence and everything. And I'm sure they will, because it's a Marvel comic, and there's some bad stuff in these Marvel comics, I will say.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like there's room for that type of stuff, whether it's in comics or like some type of standalone series. So hopefully we can see that stuff down the road.
Yeah, definitely. So that is going to bring us to our last segment. As we always do on here, we're going to go into our review for Star Wars The Bad Batch. This is Season 1, Episode 5, titled Rampage. So we're talking full spoilers, so if any of you guys haven't watched the episode, now's the time you can pause this and check it out later, because we are going to just dive right in. So we are continuing with The Bad Batch on their journey through the galaxy that has changed overnight into the Empire, and they are trying to find out places that they can hide, places that they can kind of lie low, but they have been tracked by a bounty hunter. So they want to find out what is going on with this bounty hunter, Fennec Shand, and they find an old contact of Echo, and it takes them to Ord Mantell, where they find out that they have to do another job for this person for them to give them the information of who the bounty hunter is. So this job is to find basically a juvenile Rancor and free it from the Zygerian slavers. And when they do that, they figure out that this character's name is Fennec Shand, the bounty hunter, and that she is an upstart bounty hunter, and it's a big deal. If she's after you, it's a big deal. Like, there's something that you seriously have that somebody is paying a lot of money for if she's after you. So that is basically the realization that Hunter comes to, is like, oh crap, we're in serious trouble now. So that is just a quick rundown of the episode. But yeah, my initial thoughts of this episode, where it didn't blow me away, I would say. It was kind of more of like the fine kind of range of episode, right? And I'll get into this more with my negatives and stuff like that. It just starts to feel a little bit formulaic in a sense. Not to say that this is like a filler episode. I won't say anything is like a filler episode until it like literally doesn't push the plot forward at all, because what this did do with the episode, and I think that my main takeaway from the episode is this establishes like the Bad Batch as mercenaries. Like they're like, oh, we're mercenaries? Yeah, I guess we are now. Like they didn't really think of themselves as that, and this is going to be kind of like their way into the galaxy. And that was what came out with the description of the series when it was first announced, was something along the lines of, oh, they'll become mercenaries and go around the galaxy. So this character, this Trandoshan lady, is the one that kind of puts that bug into their head to be like, okay, we're gonna have to change our ways as Republic soldiers and find our different way in the galaxy here. So those are my initial thoughts, and lots of things that I liked about this episode as well. A lot of the action, just the Rancor stuff in general, seeing Zygerians, seeing the fate of how the Empire is with having slavers exist in that galaxy where the Republic didn't. So a lot of really cool, interesting facts about that. So any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of your points about how it was very formulaic, and there's a rhythm you're starting to feel with this particular show, especially with like these couple episodes. Like I mentioned last week, the ad episode wasn't my favorite. I think I gave it like a 5 out of 10.
Yep.
This episode was better than last week, I will say.
Okay.
I actually thought it was kind of cool.
Oh.
Like in a sense of like I like the whole name drop of Ord Mantell, because like I first heard that back in Empire Strikes Back, whenever Han says to Leia, well, that bounty hunter we ran into at Ord Mantell kind of changed my mind about staying. So I was like, well, what happened during that? Who they run into? And we know it was Boba, but it's like, what happened during that? So I would love to know what happened with that particular thing. But when they name dropped that planet, I'm like, oh, I'm familiar with that. It was nice to see that it wasn't a crash ship. Like if Ben were here, he's like, there's no crash ship. We're not trying to fix a part, in a sense of like they're trying to get information at this point. They're not really in any danger per se right away. They're just trying to figure out what happened. Who's this person coming after us? But it led into them, like I said, now having to readjust themselves away from being just soldiers. They have to be mercenaries. They gotta like earn their keep at this point. They have to create bonds and start making contacts. So it was cool to see like how their moral compass might be compromised at this point throughout the show. So it was cool to see that. I thought Omega wasn't annoying in this episode. I was kind of surprised because I was thinking she would have been.
Really?
At first, I'm thinking, oh my God, she's gonna get annoying in this episode, because she was like, like she wanted to go with them, but they wouldn't let her go. So I figured like she would like get real weird about it, but she didn't, and she kind of saved the day. Like she stepped up. When she kept messing with that comm thing, I'm like, okay, that's gonna get kind of dumb real quick.
That's
but
where I was getting mad.
It worked out for her. Like it kind of worked out for her in a sense. I like the whole Rancor thing. It was cool seeing Wrecker fight that Rancor. That was kind of cute. I was like, okay, I get it. But other than that, I enjoyed the episode. It wasn't bad. It definitely didn't like change my like perspective on like, this is an awesome, episode or nothing like that. It was just solid. And like I said, they were in danger. It was nice to see that they worked together and got to see a different side of them. But at the same time, that this episode is going to have an effect on like future episodes, because mm-hmm. That particular person that they were working for is going to turn on them. She's going to say something. So like that's going to happen. So I mean, it was fine. I mean, it wasn't bad. So I enjoyed the episode.
Yeah. Good sentiments there, Milton. I will say about the Ord Mantell thing, I was a little bit disappointed. I'm gonna nitpick a lot of things just to be aware that hey, I actually like this episode. But I have like some really nerdy nitpicks when it comes to this episode. So Ord Mantell, first off, it looks, I don't know about you, but like the color palette almost looks like the same thing as the previous planet.
You're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. So I completely get your gripe. Because again, if they start pulling this whole sequel trilogy crap where they're not giving us new planets or new looks, then I'll have a problem. Continue.
But not only that, but the other game I played, all right, which is technically, I know, Star Wars Legends, right? It's not really canon anymore, but in the Old Republic game, all right, they have Ord Mantell as a starting planet for the Trooper class and for the Smuggler class. And of course, that planet is borderline snowing on that planet.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, and this has happened multiple times, right? Like they showed Tython in one of the comics, and it was like snowing, and then it's like an arid, drier place.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like it doesn't matter for the story at all, but I just want to know about. And there's a big one I'm going to talk about later on about this episode, but I just want to know the reasoning by like they already have like stuff established. Like why don't they just use that? It doesn't look like anything else. Unless they have another planet they're using that almost looks exactly like that later in the season or something.
Right. And that's where my frustration gets with Star Wars. Well, with the new era of it, because I feel like, and again, people are gonna say, you guys always talk about this. Like, I feel like with the old ways of like LucasArts, the movies, the games, whatever, like they always gave us something different with planets. And it's like we look forward to that. Like again, they're world building. I don't want to see 3 desert planets anymore. I don't want to see, forest planets all the time. I've seen those. Give us something different. So like, you're right. The color palette was the same here. Ord Mantell, I guess you said it used to be snowy to that extent. It'd be nice to see that. It'd be nice to see how the climate affects these soldiers. It'd be nice to see how it affects Omega. She's only been on Camino. She's never, and they talk about that, I believe, in episode 1 or 2, whenever she steps on the dirt. It's like, she's like, what is this? Like, again, how does she react to snow? How does she react to heat or like, to hail, whatever. So yeah, like it'd be nice to see those different types of planets.
Yeah. Another thing I'll talk about in Meg, because like you're right. I was like, oh man, she's getting annoying real quick with this communicator, because it's like you do it once, it's cute. You do it again, it's like, yeah, it's fine. The third time, it's like, okay, like I get it, guys. Like she's trying to be annoying, and they're getting very annoyed very quickly by this stupid thing. Another thing, I'm not going to take credit for this because I was listening to somebody say this on another podcast, and I forget which one it actually is. But it's a great point, and I was looking for it to happen in this episode. She's still wearing the same costume. Like she's being hunted, and all the other guys have changed their costumes to be like incognito, and she's got a Camino suit on. So it's like, and the bounty hunter's after her now. So it's like, what the heck are you doing? Like, get different clothing. You're gonna hide yourself.
Right. No, that's a good point, and I didn't think about that too, because her hair is the same, her haircut's the same, her clothes is the same. I didn't even think about that, and you're right, because at this point, anyone who has a brain could say like, okay, this girl seems out of place here. Like, what's going on? So no, that makes sense.
But overall, I think she's really cool because she is learning how to mature in a way that no one else will, right? She's just like stuck being tracked by a bounty hunter, having to deal with slavers, like learning about all this really bad stuff in the galaxy, like being stuck on this ship with a bunch of clones that could just like go crazy with the chips in their heads.
Right.
And just seeing what she does with the Rancor at the end, how she's able to sneak around, gets caught, but at least does that and releases the Rancor. So she's very scrappy. And she's also very empathetic because she knew, again, just like she knew with Crosshair, she goes up to the female Trandoshan and basically is like, that's you. Like, whether or not she used some kind of perception or the clones were just flat out stupid, like, she knew right away that she was the person.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think, honestly, from my perspective with her, she has really, like, no fear about life right now. Because she's never really been in danger. You can tell, like, she wants to go explore. I want to be part of the team. She's, well, I'm part of the team, right? I want to go do this. And she has no fear. So that's a good thing. And it's nice to see that she does relate and connect to these different types of people, because she's not really hardened in the sense of, like, being jaded about the world. The clone troopers are. They've seen, I mean, think about it with, like, any type of soldier in our world now. They're jaded to a lot of people because they don't trust a lot of people. They don't really sympathize or empathize with others because of their post-traumatic stress, mental health, what they've witnessed. So we have to still understand, like, the Bad Batch has been through a lot, so we're not going to see the heartwarming moments right now until probably later, as they start getting away from their old life. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Omega being part of the team helps balance that out and help bring that out of them, because they had to. I mean, when they went to the planet where the deserter was at,
Yeah,
he even
Sukama.
said,
Yep.
he was like, you have to learn that this isn't just like a soldier. This is a child. It's not about you. It's about them, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
get on their level pretty much. And it's like, oh, they never had to deal with that type of emotion before. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're gonna start seeing that these guys are father figures to this little girl.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, but talking about some of the fun stuff here. The Rancor versus this flying creature, I got total Kong versus Godzilla vibes in that moment. Like those two creatures just duking it out. The Rancor just punching it, dragging it by the
right,
tail, throwing it around. It was good fun.
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Or I guess what's the other one? Godzilla versus like the Mothra or whatever.
Oh
Or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a good. That's another comparison. So yeah, I can see that. Like I said, it was just different just to see where they were taking this, because we've never really seen. And we saw Rancor in Return of the Jedi, but
Yeah.
you never seen like a flying like creature like that in that live action. And you can get away with it more in animation, but overall, I liked where this episode took the characters in a sense, and it just changed it up slightly. But again, it wasn't an all world type of an episode. It didn't like change my life whenever I watched the premiere. The premiere was just special.
Yeah. See, because this didn't have it, and the previous episode didn't have it. To my knowledge,
Hmm.
like you don't really get a lot of character development in any of these characters. It's like you got plot development, like overall
Hmm.
story development, but we're not getting anything new out of any of the characters per se. Like again, Omega's still gonna do her thing. Oh, and by the way, she found the bow. So she got that bow. I was wondering where she was gonna get that bow from the trailer that we see her shooting. I thought,
Hmm.
oh, maybe it could be, like a Night Sister bow, but apparently it's a Zygerian slaver bow, which is really interesting how it folds up on her wrist like that. I think that's a really cool design.
Right.
But seeing the Zygerians, I think that was a really cool tie into the Clone Wars, which it's one of my favorite arcs. I'll say it. It's just a really cool arc with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and all them. They're dealing with the Zygerians, the slavers, and these guys are still in power now. They're on Ord Mantell, and we're just seeing how the Emperor just kind of turns a blind eye on slavers and with the underworld and all that. He doesn't really care. Just do your thing. Just don't get in my way. I'll let it go. So we see that whole thing going on, which is another way. Again, this series at the very least has done a really good job with overall world building for the galaxy in that
Hmm.
transitional state with the power.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and that's where I would like to see more of that, but more in depth of it, just because again, I know we have to have these type of missions to build up the Bad Batch. We need it. We have to build up their characters. But at the same time, they're clones. We know that the Empire is trying to phase them out eventually. We know that one of their brothers is going to be hunting them, or at least being told eventually, and we now have a bounty hunter on their tail. So let's see how that is going to impact not only the characters but also like the creation of the whole like new government. I want to see more of that. I think that's where the first three episodes really did a good job at keeping everyone engaged and saying, okay, like this world is pretty amazing, and these guys are like we're rooting for these guys, and
Mm-hmm.
we still are. But right now it's just kind of at a lull. It's kind of at like a plateau.
Mm-hmm. 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 But I think that plateau is about to decline or incline, whatever way you want to say about it, because
Right.
now we have a little bit more urgency in the plot. We know that their main mission now is to figure out who Fennec Shand is working for and what
Hmm.
her deal is. They have this hot bounty hunter on their heels. They're going to constantly have to look over their shoulder, figuring out what's going on, giving a little bit more action to the story, a little bit more forward momentum. So I don't think we're going to be able to drag our feet on certain episodes because they have to move. I mean, I watched the trailer again today, or both the teaser and the regular trailer, just to see like what we haven't seen. And there's maybe just like 2 or 3 shots per the trail that we haven't seen. So most of the stuff we have seen at this point, So I think we're really gonna hit the ground running because if we've already seen most of the stuff already, like we're gonna have a lot of surprises. Like we really
Right.
don't know where the story is going. We know that we're gonna meet Rex on the planet that is breaking down the ships, which I believe is Bracca from Jedi Fallen Order, where Cal Kestis starts out. So there's that part, and then they're going to be battling. I'm very excited to see Crosshair and what he's doing with the Elite Troopers because it's been a couple episodes. I think we have to go ahead and revisit those guys again because
Mhm.
that is another plot line. You know, you got Fennec Shand, but you also have that Elite Squad that is, I believe their mission will be to hunt down the Bad Batch eventually.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, like when I first saw them in the premiere, the first thing I thought of were the Death Troopers that we got
Yep.
in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that elite squad will lead into like the creation of the Death Troopers?
Oh, definitely. I think it's War Mantle, he said. Yeah, War Mantle. I think
Mhm.
that's just like a code name for a Death Trooper program because
Yeah,
I think Crosshair is going to be like the first like technical Death Trooper because we know that
right,
Death Troopers are not actually dead, not like the old legends or whatever they were. Um,
right.
they are troopers that get experimented on with different drugs and different stimulants, and they are basically
They're like, yeah,
trained to get even bigger than like a normal human. Like they train like crazy lifting weights and everything else.
mhm,
Um, so Crosshair could be like the first example since they're like messing with the implant. Maybe they'll figure out through all of that, like, oh, if we just do this to a normal brain, it would work just as well. And we just got to
right.
find the right candidates to join in the program. And I guess maybe like all the people like Crosshair trains will be able to accept that because we see in the Alphabet Trilogy books, there's a moment where one of the lead characters, Erica Quell, is like on this like this one planet, and she sees somebody and it's like, oh yeah, that definitely looks like it's a Death Trooper that didn't make the cut. Like apparently
Right.
it's like the Spartans from Halo. Like not everybody's cut out to be a Spartan. Not everybody's cut out to be a Death Trooper. There's gonna be people
Yeah.
their bodies can't accept the drugs. They can't accept the cybernetics or whatever they put in them. So they just basically just don't even do it. But yeah,
Right, right. Because I think of them as like Winter Soldier types,
uh huh,
in a sense of that, because like I feel like you're going to have the Death Troopers who are like the equivalent of the Winter Soldiers, and then you have like the Elite Squad, which could be like the Inferno Squad, right?
yeah, Battlefront too. Yep.
From Battlefront 2. So like, I mean, I think we're going to start seeing the creations of those particular brands of troopers because like we got the standardized troopers who really aren't that good. We see that they half of them can't shoot, but then you see you see the Death Troopers and you see the Inferno Squad, like they can wreck shop.
Uh huh.
So it's nice to see that the Empire is saying, listen, our regular military, we just need bodies. We just need bodies, and we'll get them. But if we need to get something actually done when it comes to like a special mission, protection, patrol, we'll get the elite or like the Death Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Definitely, definitely. Going back to the episode though, there's a couple things I want to say because I don't know. This is a good question to pose at this point because there's been a lot of cameos already. One of the things that held Rebels down a little bit, especially its first season, was its reliance on cameos. That kind of made the universe a little bit smaller, in my opinion. Like we had like Lando Calrissian and Leia and all these different characters showing up, like almost like character of the week sort of thing, right?
hmm
Um, I kind of want to pose that question with Bad Batch now because it seems like the whole thing with this Rancor, and then the Rancor belonging to Bib, and then that gets connected to Jabba, but then we have Fennec
Jabba.
Shand, but then we have Kanan and Jarrus. Do you think, or maybe it's fine? I mean, we're only 5 episodes in out of a 16 episode season, but um, do you think we are already treading on a thin line about, oh, are they relying too much on these characters showing up? Is it making the universe too small, or is
Right.
this a natural thing to go into like the because when we bring in Jabba, I think we're probably gonna bring in more of the underworld, which will probably bring in more of maybe Boba Fett. But if we have Fennec Shan, maybe it's expected that we have Boba Fett eventually. But what do you have anything to say about that?
I'll answer this first part this way. I would say, well, we already know those characters exist at this point because it's this point of the timeline. So I wouldn't be shocked if we get some of those. Okay. But with that said, you make a good point, because this isn't the movies. This isn't the original trilogy in the sense of that particular timeline. So if you want to reference some characters, sure, but I don't need to see Bib Fortuna because he don't mean he's a known character, but he don't really mean nothing. But when you sit here and make him like the MacGuffin in a sense, and you bring him along to like be seen, and it kind of takes away from what's the why they were there. Like they had to rescue because all they had to do was rescue the Rancor, give him to the person, and then leave. That's all they had to do. Like they did not need Bib Fortuna to show up, honestly. But like I said, I think the Kanan Jarrus thing works because we got to see his perspective of what happened. Now, clearly that was retconned, whatever, but we got to see that. And that tied into how the Bad Batch somewhat felt bad for the kid, and they weren't evil. So we got to see that side of things. Now, clearly, if I see Ahsoka, in the next 3 episodes, I'm like, all right, we're a little too much. Like Ahsoka's hiding out. Like she's not trying to be seen at this point. If I see Obi-Wan Kenobi, man, we know Obi-Wan's with Luke. Like he ain't trying to be seen. So yeah, don't bring in those characters. That's a little too much. But if you want to reference and bring in, some Imperials because they're always going to be around, some bounty hunter guys here or there, so be it. Like they're not as fleshed out as those main characters are in the movies and the other properties. So honestly, I think one character we'd like to see who wouldn't be a distraction would be Cad Bane.
Oh yeah.
I think he would be perfect, to come out because he's a bounty hunter. Let's say she needs a more experienced bounty hunter to catch these guys because they are an elite group of soldiers. So that would make sense story-wise. Say, hey, I gotta get like Cad Bane and who's that female one with the Aurora Singh or is that her name?
Oh yeah, Aurora Singh.
Or yeah, like those types. I
Yeah.
get those people showing up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, because they already dipped their toe into the underworld, so they could do
That's
that.
what I'm saying.
And
yeah, like that would make sense. I don't need to see our heroes. Like right now, it's only been, let's say, a month after Revenge of the Sith in this timeline. They're hiding out. They don't want to be known that they're alive. So that would not make sense storyline wise.
Yeah, so there's already been a little bit of discourse about the whole Rancor. And I might be kind of responsible for some of it.
I mean, look, man, it is what it is. Like, I mean, and honestly, that's probably the same Rancor that got killed in Return of the Jedi.
But here's the thing. You said it. So apparently the name of the Rancor, his name is Muchi. All right?
Yeah.
So the canon version of the Return of the Jedi Rancor, his name is Patissa. So...
Oh,
it's one of these things. It's like, well, is it the same one? But if it is, like, why the heck wouldn't they just name it Patissa from the damn book? It's like, so that's what I'm thinking. Like Jabba, maybe he has more than one Rancor, and people are like, no, it's definitely this one. Like, well, we don't really know yet.
Though, like because that's where I'm like, to me, the first thing I thought of, like, is that the same? That's the Rancor we're gonna see 30 years from now, or whatever time it is, or 20 some years, like. That's why I'm thinking. That's why I swear to God they made him like important. I'm thinking, why would they bring Bib Fortuna to get this creature? Like Bib, that's kind of below him.
Yeah.
In my opinion, so like that has to be the reason.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's to me that might be just a little over the top. That might be a little too much. But I mean, hey man, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, so again, real nitpicky kind of thing there, but I just had to point it out as somebody that enjoys reading the books and everything, and it's like, all right, well, did they not just consult with the story group on this one? Because they're like, oh, wait a second, you can't call him Muchi because his name's already been established. Like, I'm not trying to like say anything about the story group, but like, I just want to know like the reasoning behind like some of these decisions. And granted, I might be talking out of tone here or whatever, because we don't know if this is the same Rancor. I would say, I don't know what a juvenile Rancor even looks like. It's the first time we've seen it. So what to say that might grow up to be that thing, or who knows what the hell the lifespan of a freaking Rancor is to get to the size it is in Return of the Jedi. Who
Yeah.
knows? But again, it's just okay. This is interesting because obviously they wouldn't bring Bib in if it wasn't a big deal. Like if it wasn't like why would they bring Bib in just for this? So again, I hope Bib plays a bigger part and it just wasn't him. Like oh, there's a cool cameo with Bib Fortuna and we'll never see him again.
Right.
Like what significance did he play there? But maybe the Bad Batch, since they've seen Bib and Bib knows who they are now, kind of, he'll contact them for a job, or maybe they'll work for Jabba or something like that at one point.
Yeah, no, and again, that wouldn't surprise me. Now, do we need to see Jabba the Hutt? No, we don't need to see him right now. Like it just wouldn't make. I mean, it wouldn't make sense from my perspective. But at the same time, if they can justify having Jabba involved, where he say, hey, like we know you're on the run from the Republic or the Empire, we'll take care of you, but you got to do X, Y, and Z. Like if they tell a strong enough story, then I'll believe it.
Yeah, yeah. It really comes down to storytelling. Everything falling into place. You know, everybody there at the story group is doing a great job with everything so far. But you know, sooner or later things are gonna fall through the cracks. I think with all the content coming out. What we see with Kanan. If there's a good story reason, go ahead, change up the stories that preceded it if it makes sense, because they will ultimately choose the on-screen stuff over the book stuff because you're gonna get more people watching than reading any content ever, right? It's just that's how it is. It's more
Yeah,
popular
no,
watching
yeah,
it.
you're not wrong. And like I said, it's on Disney Plus, so Disney Plus already has a hell of enough number of subscribers, and it's a kids show, so you'll have the kids who may not watch it now, and probably in a couple years get into it, be like, oh, like hey, I remember that character from the movies, and it's easy for anyone to see a visual medium instead of having to reading something and imagine it, you know?
Mm-hmm. 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 And one final little gripe I had with the episode has to do with Wrecker and how every episode he's hitting his head and nothing's happening.
Yeah, yup. I thought about that too. I thought about you and Ben this morning when I watched it. I'm thinking this guy has the equivalent of CTE when it comes to like his head injuries or like concussions, like because CTE is like a big discussion of topic, and when any athlete, especially a football player, when they die, they always say, hey, have my brain be studied. I guarantee you, whenever Wrecker bites the bullet, someone needs to study his brain because he have to have like chronic like head injuries and concussions going on all the time.
Seriously.
Like
It's
it's
like, all
it's
right.
bad. Like I mean, we at this point it's kind of becoming like a joke. Like he's
It
always
is.
fighting somebody. He's always getting his ass kicked, and he gets knocked around like 500 times.
Oh man. Well, do you have anything to say about this episode other than that? I'm gonna start wrap it up and giving our score out of 10
Nah,
here.
I mean, yeah, I'll wrap it up with my score. Like so, overall, it was a solid episode. Like it wasn't trash or nothing like that. It just did enough for me where I thought it was enjoyable. If I had to give out of 10 a score, probably a 6 out of 10. It was better than last week's. So I think a 6 is fine. Again, it didn't push the narrative any further. I mean, we got to
Mm-hmm.
figure out like who she was. We already knew who Fennec Shan was, but they didn't know. And we got to see that they made an ally, but then hopefully, or most likely, that ally is going to turn on them. It just how they cut that scene, something's going to happen. So again, it
Yeah.
was predictable. It was predictable, and we knew where it was going. Hopefully, the next 3 to 4 episodes will flesh out more characters and flesh out more of the world. So 6 out of 10.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And we did get a transmission in from Ben, so I'm gonna read his. Spoiler warning. It's okay. We already did that. So here are my thoughts. If you want to read them tonight, I think this episode is pretty good for what it was. It gave the squad field experience together. In this point of the episode was the point of the episode. Muchi was a fun little Easter egg, kind of like Bale going to Alderaan in Rogue One. We all know where he ends up. Some other Easter eggs that were spotted are clone helmets on the wall. I also seen a Mandalorian helmet, by the way, on the wall. I always love seeing callbacks to future properties. I think there might have been something about, let's see. I think more and more Boba might be the client since we are jumping into the criminal side of the show. Also, Omega is still my favorite character. I'm pretty sure she's a force sensitive. At about 502, it looks like I get 502. Looks like Django's blaster. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Ord Mantell was a nice callback. Anyways, with all that being said, I expect Rex soon since he said you need friends. But I feel like we are going to get more of these missions for the next few episodes, and he gives it a 7 out of 10. So thanks Ben for sending that in. Even though you're not here, at least everybody was able to hear your thoughts. So yeah, really good points he made about the Easter eggs and stuff. I did enjoy looking in the background and seeing like the different clone helmets and different bounty hunter or different Mandalorian helmets.
Right.
Yeah, I think that they're mercenaries, so we're going to see similar missions to this. This is not going to be their only mission, as long as it still pushes the plot. Because the last thing I want to have is just like the one-off episodes where nothing happens, like almost like a video game side quest, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, okay, you're going to go and save these people from the Imperials. Okay. Next week, you're going to go and save these people from the Black Sun or something like if it devolves into that, and that's where I'm getting kind of like tensious about the whole show, is like 5 episodes in. You're right. Like you said to yourself, like we're waiting for something bigger to happen, right? And we see the wheels turning. It's going to happen. It's just, I don't know. Our patience as fans, I don't know what's going on with it, but I guess we're spoiled by some of the Marvel stuff that has come out. Mandalorian, where it's like every episode really feels like it's important, you know?
No, I agree. And like I said, I think, because it's 16 episodes for this season.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how many were in Rebels season 1. I think it might have been like 12 or 13.
13,
and,
yeah.
And I feel like they every episode did count. Now, yeah, I think they were a little handcuffed at times with the whole cameo thing. But like we got examples of like Empire Day. We didn't know what Empire Day was before that. And then we realized, wait a minute, Luke, Leia, and Ezra were born on Empire Day. So I'm like, that's awesome. Like that's world building to me. That's like dope to think of it. Because every time I watch Revenge of the Sith, whenever he makes the announcement, that's the creation of that's Empire Day.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Stuff like that. But thus far, we haven't gotten that in the last 2 episodes. I'm hoping we get to see more. Because I'm curious to see how they're going to try to continue to flesh out the clone, like get rid of the clones. Because that's always been something I've been interested in. Like, where were the clones during episode 4? Like we knew about the Clone Wars, but at that point, like, where were they? How did they die out? Were they destroyed? Were they were they reassigned? I don't know. So I would love to see where this project is going to take that.
Yeah. And I think you answered my own trepidations about the shows. Like, anytime they show the Imperial side of things, like I kind of sit up in my seat and I'm looking, I'm paying attention, because that's exactly what I want out of the story, is what happened with the clones. And that's really the story that's going along there with Crosshair. And that's what's hurt me about the last 2 episodes. Like, we just don't get any of that. We haven't seen the Imperials, and it'll be like 3 episodes. Hopefully they show up in the next episode. So yeah, I mean, just going from that into my overall thoughts for the episode, as we said, it's seeming a little bit formulaic because they start every episode on the ship. They're about to do something, and then something else happens, and they have to divert to go somewhere else. Then a little bit of action ensues. Then they finish the mission and they go back on their merry way on the ship. And that's what's happened in the last like 3 episodes. So it's kind of like, okay, I would like to see more of a playfulness with the way the episodes progress. Like maybe have like a straight up cliffhanger, like where they're still on the planet. They haven't left the planet. The mission takes 2 or 3 episodes, and that would be more like an arc that we've seen in Clone Wars. I would like to see that played with a little bit more. But other than that, I enjoyed seeing Wrecker fighting the Rancor. I think that was a great character moment for him, where every character in the Bad Batch has like their own job and their own kind of strength. And that is definitely one of his. And seeing him like really utilize that strength and seeing him so tired out to the point where the Rancor falls over, I thought that was a great moment. Seeing Omega, not necessarily growing in this episode, but does get a key piece in her arsenal with the bow. going around, like you said, being fearless. I think that's a great way of putting it. Having no cowering thought in her brain about just doing whatever it takes to save her brothers, and seeing the Zygerians, and the underworld. Hey, we're gonna see more of that apparently, so that's always cool because that's one of my favorite things about Star Wars, is the underworld. And just like Ben, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. This was probably my least favorite episode, if not like ranked there with one of the others. But that's not to say that it's a bad episode. 7 out of 10 is still a good episode for me. It's just like my expectations now are going to be a little bit higher because now we're starting to see everything come into play here. We're already getting these episodes out of the way. We know that the mercenaries. We know that there's a bounty hunter trying to get Omega. We know that they changed their ship's transponder thing so it can't be tracked. So like we're getting all this little stuff out of the way. I'm ready for some of the big stuff to come into play. They said they need to find friends. So hey, what friends could they have? Maybe they can meet a Jedi. Maybe they can pair up with a Jedi like Quinlan Vos. Maybe they will pair around with Rex for at least just a couple episodes. That's where I'm more interested in right now. And but yeah, overall, that is gonna do it for episode 9 of Outer Rim Transmissions. Thanks everybody for watching live, and everybody after the fact. You can always download this on all your favorite podcast services, from Spotify, from Google to Apple to Stitcher and beyond. If we're not on a certain platform for the podcast, let me know and we will definitely look into it. You can email me at outerrimtransmission@gmail.com. And also, like I said off the top, if you guys are looking to send in questions, we'll be happy to read those off. If you just tweet with the hashtag Outer Rim Transmission, we'll be getting to your questions and comments. So do you have anything else left to plug or say, Milton, before we head off?
Actually, I do. Speaking of our outer rim, transmission listeners, I want to give a big shout out to, and this is something that Chris brought to our attention. I guess we have some people listening over in Germany.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm glad that you guys are listening and checking out the podcast. And like I said, kudos to all you fans out there that really enjoy the podcast and the format. So thank you guys for listening, being part of the community. It's always nice to have that support. I was very surprised to see that email that Chris sent us. So yeah, man, again, really much appreciated. Pass it along to your friends. Pass it to your family. We'll make this thing global. I don't care if they live in Germany, Turkey, China, wherever. Like, just pass it along so we can get more, listeners and followers. So, because we love talking about this content and we love making people, feel good about themselves when they listen to this podcast. So, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, well said, Mountain. Well said. Yeah, that's all it is. We're all just having fun, talking about Star Wars the way it should be. Everybody's getting along. I wish it was the same on the internet, but hey, maybe one day we can all enjoy this in harmony. But until then, until episode Outer Rim number 10 next week, you guys can always catch us live every Friday, just about at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Guys, feel free to join us. We always have fun with the chat, chiming on in with what we're talking about. It's a lot of fun. So with Milton, with Ben, who will be back next week, that's going to do it for Outer Rim Transmission number 9. Have a good one, everybody.